welcome to this deep dive
Okay.
into the world of management paradoxes.
All right.
We're going to be looking at 10 of them
Okay.
from the book Ensayos en Gestão dos Paradoxos de Reflexão V5
Mm-hmm.
by Armando Oscar Cavina Filho.
Right.
And, a paradox is one of those things that
Yeah.
sounds contradictory on the surface.
Right.
But then when you dig deeper,
Yeah.
there might be some truth to it.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how these paradoxes
Yeah.
can help you make better decisions and lead more effectively,
Yeah.
no matter what field you're in.
It's intriguing how those paradoxes highlight the tension in complex systems. It forces us to think both and,
Right.
not either or.
It's like that first one,
Yeah.
analysis and synthesis.
Yeah.
We've all had that experience where you
Yeah.
do all this research when you think, okay, I'm getting to the bottom of this.
Right.
And then we realize,
Yeah.
there's so much more to learn.
Exactly. And as the book emphasizes, analysis is an ongoing process, not a one-time event.
It's never ending.
You unearth new information, which requires further examination. And if you're not careful, you get stuck in that analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis.
Overwhelmed by the information.
Yeah, and that's where that synthesis comes in
Yeah.
to try to draw those meaningful conclusions.
Draw conclusions from all those details.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is the author points out
Yeah.
that challenge of managing those individuals who are very good at analysis and synthesis.
Oh, right.
They might get frustrated with the slowness of others.
They're like, come on.
Yeah, so a good leader really needs to understand how to leverage their strength without creating friction.
Have you ever felt frustrated when other people aren't as quick as you?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're that person that's
Yeah.
really good at analysis and synthesis.
Or maybe you're on the other end. You feel the pressure to keep up.
To keep up with that person.
Yeah, and this paradox highlights the importance of different cognitive styles in teams and fostering an environment of mutual respect.
Right, let's go to the second paradox.
Okay.
Possible and probable.
Possible and probable.
This one really challenges our reliance on data and predictions.
Data and predictions. Yeah, the book really dives into this. How we're obsessed with probability. And that reflects a limited understanding of complex systems.
Right, we try to quantify.
We try to quantify
the unknown.
The unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by doing that, we might miss out on valuable possibilities.
Yeah. Have you ever been surprised by some event
Yes.
that you dismissed as unlikely?
All the time.
This paradox really encourages us
It does.
to broaden our perspective.
Yeah, to challenge our assumptions and to be adaptable
Yeah.
in the face of uncertainty.
All right, let's move on to the third one.
Okay.
Risk and uncertainty.
Risk and uncertainty.
Now, these are terms that are often used interchangeably,
They are.
but the
Yeah.
book makes a distinction between the two.
It does. The author defines risk
Okay.
as the probability of something happening.
Okay.
Uncertainty focuses on the magnitude of the impact.
So something could have a low probability,
Exactly.
but the consequences could be huge.
Yeah, and that's why understanding this difference is so important for risk management.
Yeah.
You need to look at both.
Right.
You have to consider both.
So it's not enough to just determine how likely it is to happen.
Exactly. You need to weigh the potential consequences.
And the book says that shared risk
Yes.
can lead to
increased risk-taking.
increased risk-taking.
Yeah, the idea is that when that burden is spread among several people, people might feel less responsible and therefore more willing to take a risk.
So are you more cautious when you're by yourself?
Yeah, I am.
Or do you take more risks when you're in a group?
Much more. It's the diffusion of responsibility.
Diffusion of responsibility.
This paradox highlights the importance of group dynamics and how shared responsibility can influence individual behavior.
Okay, let's talk about paradox number 4.
Okay.
Time and opportunity.
Time and opportunity.
This one says that a great idea at the wrong time
at the wrong time
can be just as bad as a mediocre idea at the right time.
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything.
The book uses a phrase, the right answer at the wrong time is useless.
Yeah, and then
missed opportunities can be very costly.
Have you ever had a great idea
that
you just sat on and then somebody else did it?
Yes.
Or maybe you rushed into something without adequate preparation?
Yeah.
This paradox encourages us
It does.
to develop a sense of timing.
A sense of timing.
So it's not procrastination, but it's not being impulsive either.
Exactly. There's a balance there.
All right, paradox number 5.
Okay.
Demand and cycle.
Demand and cycle.
This is really relevant
It is.
for people that manage
Yeah.
resources.
Resources, yeah.
Whether it's your time or
However
energy or physical goods.
Yeah.
The book highlights
Uh-huh.
the challenge
Yeah.
of balancing the need to meet demand,
To meet demand.
but also the risks
Yeah.
of overstocking
Of overstocking.
or having things become obsolete.
And it brings up a good point about the problem of the average.
Oh, right.
Using averages to forecast demand
Yeah.
can be misleading.
Like saying that the average temperature in a city is 70 degrees.
Yeah.
So you never need a coat.
You need to consider those peaks and valleys,
Right.
not just that single average figure.
This applies not just to businesses,
Yeah.
but to managing your own
Your own
time and energy.
resources. Yeah.
Are you constantly overcommitting,
Yes.
or are you
Playing it too safe.
playing it too safe?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to number 6.
Okay.
Strategy and execution.
Strategy and execution.
This one is really relevant
It is.
in today's world.
Very much so.
It's a reminder that simply working hard
Simply working hard doesn't guarantee success.
doesn't guarantee success.
You need a clear strategic direction
Well,
for your efforts.
It's like pushing a car in the wrong direction.
That's the analogy the book uses. It doesn't matter how hard you push,
Yeah.
you're not going to get to your destination.
And the author says that just because somebody is in a position of authority doesn't mean
That they're a strategic thinker.
they're good at strategic thinking.
Exactly.
Even leaders can get bogged down
In the day-to-day.
in those details
Yeah.
and lose sight of the bigger picture.
It's a reminder to step back
Yeah.
and assess whether your actions
Are aligned with your goals.
Have you ever been part of a project
Oh, yeah.
where everyone was working really hard,
Yes.
but the results
We're dismal.
were disappointing?
Yeah.
Was it a case of
Misaligned effort.
misaligned effort,
Pushing in the wrong direction.
pushing in the wrong direction?
This paradox really underscores the importance of revisiting your strategy
Yeah.
and making sure everyone is on board and working towards a common goal.
All right, let's go to number 7.
Okay.
Redundancy and contingency.
Redundancy and contingency.
These concepts might seem
might go overkill.
like overkill at times.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the book makes a case for
It does for their importance.
their importance.
It's all about preparation
Correct.
and risk mitigation.
It's like having a spare tire
A spare tire in your car.
in your car.
You hope you never need it.
You hope you never need it,
But you're glad you have it.
but you're glad you have it.
If you get a flat,
If you get a flat,
The book uses some good examples for redundancy.
Yeah.
The aviation industry,
Okay.
where critical systems are duplicated.
okay.
For contingency,
Yeah.
fire department,
Okay.
where pre-planned strategies
Yeah.
are essential.
So
So these concepts might seem like they're only for high-stakes situations,
Right.
but they can be applied to everyday life.
Okay, so redundancy is like having
A backup plan.
a backup plan.
Yeah.
And contingency is like having
Yeah, checklist.
of how to handle problems.
So think about your own plans.
Your own plan.
Do you have backup plans?
Backup plans.
Have you thought about potential obstacles and
Yeah.
how you would
Overcome them.
overcome them?
It's about being proactive,
I'm proactive.
not reactive.
All right, number 8,
Okay.
lack or excess.
Lack or excess? This is a constant struggle for me.
It is a constant struggle.
So good.
Yeah.
Having too little of something
Or having too much.
or wasting resources
Wasting resources by having too much.
by having too much.
We operate from a scarcity mindset,
Yeah.
which can lead us to hoard resources
Yeah.
unnecessarily.
The book highlights how that fear
Yeah.
of scarcity can lead to overabundance.
overabundance.
It's like we stockpile just in case.
Just in case.
And then we end up with
a lot of stuff we don't use.
closets full of stuff
For overflowing inboxes.
that we never use.
Yeah.
Or in boxes that never
It never get empty.
get empty.
So this abundance can create its
Yeah.
own set of problems.
I mean, it's its own problem.
Yeah, like clutter, disorganization, a
Yeah.
feeling of being overwhelmed.
So how do we
It's
find
not
that?
the sweet spot
How do we find that sweet spot
between scarcity
between scarcity and excess?
and excess.
The author emphasizes
Yeah.
careful planning
Yeah.
and forecasting,
So it's understanding
understanding your needs,
your needs, taking into account potential fluctuations in demand, and then making informed decisions.
So it's about being mindful
About being mindful
of our consumption,
of our consumption.
possessions,
Possessions, time and energy.
time and energy.
And this ties into that log normal curve we discussed earlier.
Right.
We need to prioritize mitigating the risks
Yeah.
with the most significant potential impact.
Yeah.
And we also need to be mindful of those areas where excess can create the most problems.
Okay, let's go to number 9.
Number 9.
Intuition and reason.
Intuition and reason.
This is a paradox.
It is a paradox.
It's very relevant in today's
data-driven world.
data-driven world.
It challenges us to find that sweet spot between logic and gut feeling.
Gut feeling.
We don't want to rely too much on logic,
Right.
which could lead to overly complex solutions.
Right.
And we don't want to only depend on gut feeling.
Which might make us miss crucial details.
Right.
It's about blending the head and the heart.
Blending the head and the heart.
Not letting one overshadow the other.
Right.
And the right balance will vary depending on the situation.
Right.
Sometimes we need a quick, intuitive decision.
Yeah.
Other times a more deliberate approach.
The author gives the example of choosing friends.
Choosing friends.
We don't usually apply a
The logical
The
checklist.
checklist. We go with feeling.
Intuition.
Yeah.
Think about those times when you had a gut feeling
Oh, yeah.
and you were right.
Those moments are powerful reminders
Yeah.
that intuition can be valuable.
So how do we cultivate
That's the
right
question.
intuition?
Is it something we're born with?
Yeah.
Or is it something we can develop?
Yeah.
The book suggests it's a skill that
Yeah.
can be honed through experience, self-awareness,
Right.
and a willingness to pay attention
Okay.
to those subtle signals
Right.
that our conscious mind might miss.
So it's being present,
Being present.
being observant,
Trusting your inner wisdom.
your inner wisdom.
It's also being willing to challenge your assumptions and step outside your comfort zone.
And the author says, one way to develop intuition.
One way to develop intuition,
more decisions.
the more decisions we make,
Yeah.
the more feedback we receive,
Right.
the more we learn to trust
Right.
our instincts.
And that feedback loop
That feedback loop
is essential for refining our decision-making process.
our decision-making process.
And finally, number 10,
Number 10,
persistence and abandonment.
persistence and abandonment.
This is a challenging one
It is a challenging one.
because it's knowing when to keep pushing
When to keep pushing
and when to let go.
and when to let go.
The book highlights
It does.
that persistence is admirable,
Persistence is admirable.
but there are times
there are times
when we need to change course
or abandon a goal
or abandon a goal.
altogether.
It's about knowing when to cut your losses
Right.
and move on,
The author stresses the importance of
of learning from our mistakes.
learning from our mistakes.
Yeah. And letting go of things that aren't serving us.
So think about
Right.
your own goals
Yeah.
and projects.
Are you holding on to something
That
might be better abandoned
or are you giving up too easy?
or giving up too easily
Mm-hmm.
on something worth fighting for? So this paradox
Yeah.
encourages us to be honest with ourselves
Yeah.
about our motivations,
Our motivation.
our progress,
Yeah.
and the potential costs
Yeah.
of continuing.
Continuing down a particular path.
It's a constant dance between
Yeah.
determination
Yeah.
and discernment.
This paradox highlights the importance
Yeah.
of not just setting goals,
Right.
but also regularly evaluating
them
whether
set it.
those goals are still worth pursuing
Right.
and if our strategies are still effective.
And this reminds me of a point
Oh,
the book made
yeah.
about how experience can be both
It can be both
an asset
an asset and a liability.
and a liability.
On the one hand,
Yeah.
it gives us valuable lessons and insights.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
it can make us resistant to change.
Resistant to change.
Even when change is necessary,
Right.
the author emphasizes the
Right.
need for a balance,
The balance.
between experience
Yeah.
and fresh perspectives.
Right.
Organizations that cling to the "we've always done it this way"
Right.
risk becoming stagnant.
It's about finding that sweet spot
That sweet spot.
between leveraging
Yeah.
that wisdom of experience,
Yeah.
but also
Embracing new ideas.
embracing new ideas.
Speaking of new ideas,
Yeah.
let's go back to
Okay.
risk and uncertainty.
Risk and uncertainty.
The book delves into some
Yeah.
interesting statistical concepts
Yeah.
that can help us better understand how to manage risk.
Like the log normal curve.
Log normal curve.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, that went over my head.
It can seem a bit complex,
A little bit.
but it's a very useful tool.
Okay.
It shows how the frequency
Ah.
and magnitude of events
Okay.
are related.
Okay.
Essentially, it shows
Yeah.
that extremely large events
Right.
are much rarer
Rare.
than smaller, more frequent events. So
Catastrophic events
catastrophic events,
are statistically less likely,
but potentially devastating
potentially devastating.
than minor incidents.
Minor incidents.
Yeah.
So this has implications for
Big implications
the-
for how we manage risks.
manage risk.
We need to allocate resources.
Yeah. Focusing on mitigating those risks
Yeah.
that have the biggest impact, even if they're not the
Yeah.
most likely to occur.
It's like preparing for an earthquake.
Yeah.
You might go years.
Years without one. But if a major earthquake hits,
Yeah.
you want to be prepared.
We want to be prepared.
It's about prioritizing those risks that could have
Yeah.
a disproportionate impact,
Yep.
even if they're not
Right.
the most probable.
And this kind of ties in.
It does tie in
It
with
is.
the Pareto
What is
principle,
principle?
the 80-20 rule.
The 80-20 rule.
80% of effects
Yeah.
come from 20% of causes.
So in risk management,
Yeah.
80% of your losses
80% of losses,
come from
20% of the risks.
the risks. So by focusing on that critical 20%,
Right.
we can have a significant impact
That's right.
on reducing
Overall risk.
overall risk.
You know, I'm starting to see
How all of these paradoxes
Girl.
are interconnected.
are all intertwined.
It's like those optical illusions where you see one image and then suddenly you see
You see a different one.
a different one.
These paradoxes are kind of like that.
Yeah.
They challenge us to see things from different perspectives.
From different perspectives.
And this multifaceted view
Yeah.
is so important for good decision making.
Now, we talked about
Yeah.
redundancy and contingency.
Redundancy and contingency.
Can I elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Redundancy is about having
Like-
backup systems.
Like a spare tire.
Like a spare tire.
But-
You hope you don't need it,
You hope you don't need it.
but it's there
But it's there just in case.
just in case.
In a business,
Yeah.
it could be having multiple suppliers
Multiple suppliers.
or a backup
backup data center.
data center
Yeah.
and contingency planning.
Contingency planning is anticipating problems
Anticipating problems
and having a plan.
and having a plan,
Humid press too.
but address them.
Like a fire drill
A fire drill.
or an evacuation plan.
Yeah,
You're not expecting a fire,
right.
but you're prepared
But you're prepared.
if one occurs.
Now, this might seem like it's just for
Yeah.
big organizations,
Big organizations.
but we can be applied.
Apply to your personal life.
Think about your goals.
Is your goals?
Do you have a backup plan
Do you have a backup plan
for an important presentation?
for that presentation?
Have you considered obstacles
Considered obstacles
and how you would overcome them?
and how to overcome them.
It's about being proactive,
Being proactive.
not reactive.
And speaking of being proactive,
Yeah.
let's go back to lack or excess.
Lack or excess.
We talked about this earlier.
We did.
This is a constant struggle.
It's constant struggle.
It's that fine line between
having enough
having enough,
and avoiding waste.
avoiding waste,
The book says
It's
that the
not-
fear of scarcity
and drive us
to overstock.
but overstock.
We hoard things.
We hoard things.
just in case. Just in case. And then we end up
Closets full of stuff we don't use.
with closets full of stuff.
Yeah. Or those overflowing inboxes
Overflowing inbox
that never seem to get empty.
that never get empty.
And the irony is
Yeah.
this abundance can create its own problems.
It creates its own problems.
Clutter,
Yeah.
disorganization,
Yeah.
a feeling of being overwhelmed.
So how do we find
That sweet spot.
that sweet spot
Between scarcity
between scarcity
and excess.
and excess? Well, the author emphasizes
Wait.
planning
And forecasting.
to understanding,
Understanding your needs,
taking into account
potential fluctuation,
potential fluctuation, and then making informed decisions
informed decisions
about how much
about how much you really need.
you really need.
So it's about
being mindful of our consumption,
Not just material possessions,
Yeah.
but time and energy as well.
time and energy.
And this awareness ties into
Okay.
the long normal curve.
The long normal curve.
Just as we need to prioritize
Yeah.
mitigating those risks
Yeah.
with the most significant potential impact.
Right.
We also need to be mindful
Yeah.
of those areas where excess
Okay.
can create the most problems.
So it's about being discerning
and being sure about
where our
Yeah.
efforts will have
most impact.
the most impact. And this requires us
To tap into
both
That's the whole-
intuition and reason,
intuition and reason
which brings us back
brings us back
to that
to our
paradox.
paradox.
Intuition and reason.
Intuition and reason.
It's about understanding
Yeah.
data and logic
Get and logic.
are essential,
That so is
but so is our gut feeling.
our gut feeling.
The book reminds us that the most logical solution
Yeah.
isn't always the best solution we have. To be able to listen to our intuition and factor in those intangible elements.
That can't always be quantified.
It's like that saying.
It is.
Follow your heart, but take your brain with you.
Exact.
And the author gives an example.
Yeah.
Choosing friends.
Choosing friends.
We don't really use a logical checklist.
A logical checklist.
When we're choosing friends.
We go with feeling.
We go with feeling.
Intuition.
Connection.
And there's a lot of research now on the power of intuition and how it can lead to better outcomes than purely rational analysis.
So think about a
time when you
made a decision. Based purely on gut.
Purely on gut feeling.
Did it work out?
Yeah. Did it work out?
What about a time when you overanalyzed and ended up with a convoluted solution?
Yeah. This paradox invites us
to tap into
the part.
Both our rational and intuitive minds.
Recognizing
that both have strengths and limitations.
All right. So we are at the end of part two.
Part 2.
Of our 3-part series on the 10 management paradoxes.
10 management paradoxes.
From the book. Ensayos en Gestão das Paradoxos para Reflexão V5 by Armando Oscar Cavana Filho.
Okay.
Join us next time.
Book 3.
Where we will
we'll continue
a
discussion of these fascinating paradoxes.
Oh, I see then.
See you then. It strikes me that these paradoxes we've been talking about really challenge conventional wisdom
They do.
about management and leadership.
They encourage us to question those traditional models where power and authority are concentrated at the top. The book suggests that true authority comes from competence and a willingness to empower others, not from holding a particular position or title.
So it's fostering a more collaborative environment.
Everyone feels valued.
Feels valued and respected.
Regardless of their role. And one of the things the book suggests is to rotate people. Between operational and strategic roles.
And why is that?
The author argues that this can break down silos and help people develop a more holistic understanding of the organization.
Well, they get to
experience both the big picture and the day-to-day operational details.
And it could also help with
empathy and understanding
between different departments. Absolutely. And it ties in with persistence and abandonment. A leader who has experienced both successes and failures is better equipped to make those decisions.
About when to push forward.
And when to push forward.
And when to let go.
When to let go.
So it's about having that experience to inform those decisions.
That hands-on experience.
It also highlights the importance of fostering a culture. Or of learning.
Of learning and experimentation. A culture where it's okay to make mistakes.
It's okay to make mistakes.
As long as you learn from them. Organizations that punish failure stifle innovation.
Yeah, you got to create that safe space.
And that psychological safety ties back into
intuition and reason. When people feel safe, they're more likely to tap into their intuition and contribute.
Contribute in meaningful ways.
So if these paradoxes are so insightful,
I think it's a great question.
Why aren't they?
Why aren't
more widely discussed?
More widely discussed.
And embraced.
Yeah, why do we try to simplify things?
Why do we
ignore the complexity?
I
think it's because our brains are drawn to patterns and predictability. We crave certainty in a world that's inherently uncertain.
So we try to put things...
We do. We try to categorize everything.
In boxes.
Yeah, even when it doesn't fit.
And
paradoxes.
Got that.
They make us confront.
They do. They force us to confront those gray areas.
The
nuances.
The
contradictions.
And that can be uncomfortable.
It can be. It's easier to stick with the familiar.
Even
if it's not accurate.
But
I think the real magic is when we embrace that discomfort.
We lean into
the complexity and allow ourselves
to be challenged. Because that's
where the real
insights are.
The breakthroughs. That's where we move beyond simplistic thinking. So
As we wrap up.
Yeah, as we wrap up.
What's the one key takeaway?
What's the one key takeaway?
I would say embrace the complexity.
Embrace the complexity.
Don't shy away.
Don't shy away.
From the paradoxes.
From the paradoxes.
The contradictions.
Yeah.
The gray areas.
The gray areas.
That's where the real growth and innovation happens. It's acknowledging that there are no
easy answers.
Easy answers.
No one-size-fits-all solution.
It's about recognizing that these paradoxes aren't just about management and leadership.
Management and leadership.
They're about life.
They're about life.
How we approach challenges.
Yeah. How we make decisions.
How we navigate.
How we navigate relationships. And if you're feeling stuck, remember this question from the book.
Okay.
What small change can I make today that might lead to unexpected breakthroughs tomorrow?
That is a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
And with that, we will leave you to continue your exploration. Of these fascinating paradoxes.
Fascinating paradoxes.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Fellow deep divers.
Deep divers.